Bills, Niners, Sunday Night Football in Week 13. We're going to get you ready for it today on the Locked On Podcast Network.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into this crossover Thursday episode of both Locked On Bills and Locked On 49ers. We are a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and we're thankful for our everydayers, those of you who make us your first listen of the day and never miss a single episode. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. I'm Joe Marino, host of the Locked On Bills podcast, joined by Eric Crocker, the host of Locked On 49ers, and we're here to get you ready for Week 13. Bills, Niners, Sunday Night Football. Chris Berman's excited for sure anytime these two teams get together. Obviously, everyone remembers him every year in the 90s picking Bills and Niners for the Super Bowl. We're going to get you ready for this game. We'll talk about the path to victory for each team. We'll talk Bills storylines, but we do start today with the 49ers storylines. And Eric, it's been a weird year for the 49ers, the reigning NFC champions. The attrition has been crazy. Injuries galore. The latest, most recent guys, starting quarterback Brock Purdy, Nick Bosa, obviously one of the elite defensive players in the league. What can you tell us about the status of those two players as we record this on a Wednesday morning ahead of the game?
So I think the big one right now, really is both Nick Bosa and Brock Purdy, but it's extremely difficult to function without your starting quarterback. And right now it looks like Brock Purdy, he's throwing without any big limitations. He's resumed throwing. He's not having any pain or any setbacks or anything like that. I don't know. We'll see, because this sounded similar to what we were hearing last week with the reports. And then obviously around Friday morning, found out Brock Purdy would not be playing. So I assume he will be playing. That's what it sounds like. But even with him playing, and this is part of the top storylines, Brock Purdy has not been like the best quarterback in inclement weather. So I don't know if it's, he's not the biggest of guys. Maybe his hands aren't big, but he's had a little bit of trouble throwing when it's gotten a little wet outside. And I don't know. You guys can let me know how it looks in Buffalo right now. But I saw pictures on the social media flying around where it was, just white. Everything was white. The seats were white. Just snow everywhere out there in Buffalo. So if that holds true, even if you have Brock Purdy out there, it may not be the Brock Purdy that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, it's going to be a cold night for sure in Western New York here late. I guess it's December 1st, actually, on the game. And there could be some snow. So that's definitely an element for this game to be mindful of. Croc, let me kind of look at it this way, because the 49ers are typically one of the best teams in the NFL. Obviously, the reigning NFC champs. They've been to the Super Bowl a couple times recently, and it feels like anytime that they're reasonably healthy, that's what they do. They go to the Super Bowl. If not, then they kind of have a down year. I look at this team somewhat like I do last year's Bills team. Now, the Bills didn't go to the Super Bowl, but they were 5-5. They were then 6-6. And then they went on a run. They got to 11-6. They won the East. They're the number 2 seed in the AFC. And it's like, wow, that was a really weird year, but kind of ended the way you anticipated it, with the Bills being a top seed. Can the Niners do that? Like, do you see that type of possibility for this Niners team, especially in the NFC West, where, come on, man, it's a mess here top to bottom?
Well, I think that's what we're all waiting for, that moment where it kind of clicks for the 49ers and they start to look more like what they've looked like in previous years. We have seen this from the San Francisco 49ers. A couple years ago, they started the season 3-5. Then they went on a big run, ended up squeaking into the playoffs and going to the conference championship game, only to fall to the Los Angeles Rams in that game. But we've seen the 49ers kind of have some of these slow starts, kind of go back and forth a little bit early on and then go on a run. This feels a little bit different. Falling to 5-6 after the loss to the Packers, especially in the fashion that they did, albeit a lot of injuries out there. But even then, you go from 5-6, and then the very next week you have to travel to Buffalo, East Coast time zone, in very inclement weather. Not sure if it's going to be snowy out there or not. Playing against Josh Allen and one of the best teams in the AFC. So if you had confidence in the past, because hey, you'll figure it out, you'll click, it'll work out, cool. But this team, it just feels a little different. And I think the path to making the playoffs is much more difficult. You have the Miami Dolphins coming up. That's a team that is playing very well right now. You have the Detroit Lions coming up. That's a team that's one of the hotter teams in the NFL. So I think when you look at it from that standpoint, the 49ers, it's a tall task for them to make the playoffs, even though, again, we have seen them do this and come out of it and still make a late playoff push. The road is much more challenging. Now, you are playing in the NFC West, and there's no team right now running away from it. So you can still see a path where the 49ers, find a way to just win the division. But even then, you already lost to the Arizona Cardinals. You already lost to the Los Angeles Rams. You have to play both of those teams again. They own the tiebreakers in those. You haven't played well against the NFC conference in general, so that hasn't helped the 49ers a whole lot. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for the 49ers to make the playoffs. Hoping they do. Hoping they can, because this is a team that they can get in and just be a little healthier, and you have all your guys. They've been there before. They've done that, and they can potentially make a run. But just to get to that point right now, it seems very difficult.
Yeah, all the teams in the NFC West are either 6-5 or 5-6. So it's been, as a non-fan of a team in the NFC West, it's been kind of fun to watch. But the door's open, right? You mentioned, though, some tough games: Miami, Buffalo, Detroit along the way. How about Christian McCaffrey? This has been one of the biggest storylines in the NFL, where missed a bunch of time, wasn't necessarily expecting that to be the case. He's played a couple of games now. What have you seen from CMC? Does he look like himself?
I think if you ask most people watching the game, they would say he looks like he maybe lost a step, or he's trying to still find his kind of footing and get back in the groove of things, which I guess should be expected. You come back middle of the season, you've been out. He missed most of training camp and preseason. He missed, obviously, the first half of the season. Then you're thrusted into this position to where, hey, you actually need to come back and be the savior of the 49ers and try to salvage this season for them. And I don't know if he's been that guy that's capable of doing that. Now, he has looked like CMC in the passing game, and they've done a really good job of getting the ball to him out in space and have him catching passes. But in the run game, it just hasn't been there. Now, I don't know if it's not there because, hey, this is a guy coming off of these Achilles injuries, and he's trying to find his way, and he's just a step slower to seeing things or being able to hit the hole. Or if teams are like, well, we're just going to load the box, and we're going to put all of our attention into focusing and stopping him. We understand what Kyle Shanahan wants to do in the run game, and maybe that's what has limited him on the ground. He's averaging like just a little bit over 3 yards per carry since coming back. It hasn't been great, and you haven't seen him be able to bust off those big runs. I think most 49er fans are wondering, why hasn't there been a little bit more of a mix between Jordan Mason and Christian McCaffrey? Because Jordan Mason, before he had his shoulder injury, he was one of the best running backs in the league statistically to start this season. All of a sudden, he's not getting any carries. He gets a few carries last game. His first carry went for 16 yards, had a couple losses on some carries, but he hasn't really seen the rock since Christian McCaffrey has come back. So I think if Kyle Shanahan can figure out how to not put the entire run game plan on Christian McCaffrey, utilize Jordan Mason and their different run styles, I think that right there, that tandem can actually help the 49ers a little bit more on the ground against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, one thing I'm thinking about as it relates to CMC in this particular game is the Bills' defense, pretty solid defense, but they have given up the most yards and the most receptions to running backs in the passing game. And so if there was a week for that to really be part of the equation for San Francisco, you feel like this might be a good chance to do it. I want to talk a little bit about the defense here. How are things going defensively? I know some of the metrics are good, but I also am curious what you have to say about Brandon Staley and kind of his influence on that unit. I know that obviously they've made a lot of defensive coaching changes throughout the year. Some of that because guys get hired away. Some of it, Kyle Shanahan doesn't want to work with whatever defensive coordinator anymore. So what's the vibe on this defense, and where do you think Brandon Staley falls into that?
Ooh, Brandon Staley, it feels like he's the guy that was coming in to help, and he was going to be an extra defensive mind. But Nick Sorensen is the defensive coordinator, and all the blame is going on him right now. Now, I put the blame on someone totally different. I always, when it comes to the coordinating position and it not being executed a certain way, I put the blame on Kyle Shanahan. This is Kyle Shanahan's defense. He handpicks guys and has them run the defense that he wants them to run, even if it's something that they're not the most familiar with. Last season, the 49ers had Wilkes. They hired him away from the Carolina Panthers. And I remember during one of the early press conferences, he said, "Oh yeah, I'm still learning the defense." And it's like, what? How are you learning the defense when you're a defensive guy? Well, Kyle Shanahan forces guys to run the defense he wants, and it has worked at times. He hired Robert Saleh because he was very interested in his team running that Seattle scheme 3, and Saleh came from that tree. He obviously was able to get DeMeco Ryans, but DeMeco Ryans had been with the 49ers since this tenure of all these coaches started. So he had been in every defensive meeting, knew exactly what Kyle Shanahan wanted and how to run it. Well, you went outside, you hired Wilkes, didn't quite work out because they weren't on the same page. And then you go and you grab Sorensen, who has been with the team for 2 years. And I don't know what Sorensen's philosophy is, but right now, whatever it is, it just has not worked. It has not gelled. The defense has been very inconsistent, to say the least, at different times throughout the season. They've had some laps. There were some times where I felt like maybe the right personnel wasn't on the field. Game-winning drive by the Seattle Seahawks. You're running a dang near base or just a regular nickel package when, hey, let's get some dime in there. Let's get some quarterback spies. You see that Geno Smith, he's taking off. He's running. He's utilizing his legs. And he was able to really gash the 49ers on the ground on that game-winning drive. So maybe some adjustments can be made, whether it's a personnel thing or just an execution thing. But right now, the 49ers defense, when they need to be good, they have not been very good.
All right, so those are the big storylines for the 49ers. On the other side of it, we're going to talk about the Bills side of things, folks. Be sure to stick with us. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And look, maybe you want to get in on the action for this game. I think that FanDuel has the Bills as a 6.5-point favorite in this game. Maybe you like the 49ers and the points in this one. There's also the player props. If you think a certain player is going to go off, go get in on that action. And don't forget about the live betting. It's super fun during the game. You can go and bet on if a player is going to catch a pass on the next drive, what the result of the drive will be. So much fun. So never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Eric Crocker, let's talk Bills, man. What you got for me?
Oh, man, I mean, just how this team, they're playing so well right now. Obviously, they had the 2-game losing streak there towards the beginning of the season. But since then, the team is on fire. So if you have seen at any point in games, again, a team that is scoring dang near over 30 points per game, at any times where a team has maybe been able to kind of slow them down a little bit. What has been the recipe for that?
Well, slowing down the Bills' offense, I think, comes from getting pressure on Josh Allen. I think you have got to put him in unique conflict. And the Bills' pass protection schemes have improved a lot throughout the course of the season. They were running a lot of 5-man protections early on, and then teams started to heat them up a little bit with the blitz, and they go to some 6- and 7-man blocking surfaces and try to figure out who the right pass blocking back is. Obviously, that's not really James Cook's forte, and Ty Johnson's kind of settled into this role. But I think where you can have success against the Bills is getting pressure on Josh Allen. Now, obviously, you have to be careful with that because Josh can extend and make you pay for some of that. But you got to get your pressure looks going. And then on top of that, the Bills have really rooted their offense in efficiency. They want to get themselves in third and manageable situations. They'll run the ball quite a bit on early downs to make sure that they get there. And so how do you counter that? Can you get the Bills in situations where it's not third and manageable, right? You want to get them in third and longs. And part of that is your ability. Can you defend the run early? Can you get the Bills behind the sticks? They've certainly had a lot of pre-snap penalties. They're 9th in the NFL in pre-snap penalties on offense this year. And so those types of things have been self-inflicted wounds, and it takes away from the idea of efficiency that they want. So how do you get the Bills in negative situations? I think that's what the game plan has to be rooted in defensively against the Bills. You got to go for those big plays, tackles for loss, hunt the football, and see if you can get the Bills outside of their script and their schedule that they want to play on.
What has been the development of these receivers that the Buffalo Bills have right now? I know earlier in the season they traded for, or middle of the season, traded for Amari Cooper to really kind of help the learning curve of some of their younger players. Khalil Shakur, he seems like he's coming on and being a lot more consistent as of late. Curtis Samuel, guy that they've been looking to get the ball in the hand. So with the 49ers, a team that has been, I don't want to say vulnerable on the back end, but it's been a little interesting with a lot of the younger players. How have teams been able to kind of try to stifle some of the pass catchers of the Buffalo Bills?
Eric, the teams are playing man coverage against the Bills at an alarming rate. The Bills see the most man coverage of any team in the NFL this year and last year. This has been like a trend here. And the Bills have certainly changed their offense in a lot of ways to be able to handle that. And so man coverage has been what other teams have tried to do. And through that, the Bills have really leaned into Khalil Shakir, their slot receiver, leads the team in receptions, leads the team in yards, and he's been unbelievable after the catch. He's number one in the NFL right now in yards after catch per reception among receivers with 25 or more catches. He's number one in the NFL in yards after contact per reception, a little over 3 yards every time after contact. And he's along with DeAndre Hopkins and A.J. Brown as the only 3 receivers in the league that don't have a drop with more than 25 catches this year. So he's really become kind of the go-to guy, excuse me, in this passing offense. And what's interesting is we haven't really seen it all come together with everyone healthy at the same time, because they traded for Amari Cooper and he had a great first game, and then he's had a wrist injury, missed 2 games, and then played with a cast against the Chiefs and caught a couple of nice passes down the field. Not to mention Keon Coleman, their first round, well, it's not a first round pick 33, right? They traded out of the first round. He's been really good in terms of that size, body control, yards after catch. He doesn't have 25 catches. He has 22, but he's averaging more yards after catch than Keon Coleman, and kind of giving you that body control, ball skills, yards after catch talent, the bigger body guy that can play on the perimeter. And when you have those 2 perimeter guys in Cooper and Coleman, it opens up a lot in the middle of the field for Shakir. And then, of course, Dalton Kincaid, the talented receiving tight end that they have. So the Bills have this everybody eats mentality with their weapons on offense. And there's just a lot of depth to it and how they get everyone involved. It's not about Josh Allen throwing the ball to Stephon Diggs anymore. It's just not, right? He plays the game differently with a lot of different guys on the menu. He distributes the football, and teams have kind of countered this with man coverage. And as the weeks move on, the Bills have been beating that man coverage more and more. So I'm kind of curious to see what that next wrinkle is going to be for defenses against the Bills.
The interesting thing with the Buffalo Bills adding weapons and utilizing guys more, they weren't really doing a great job early on, a little inconsistent. And I thought if there was a time for Josh Allen to start pressing and turn the ball over, it would have been early in the season. Well, he had 0 interceptions through 7 weeks, but 5 over the last 4 weeks. What are our teams doing anything different? And we know Josh Allen, amazing player. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league to watch, just the way he plays, the way I know he can carry a team at any moment. But he has been liable to kind of play reckless at times, maybe being, I don't even want to say overconfident with his abilities, because we've seen how his abilities really, and being confident in him, some of the throws and plays he's able to make with his legs, with his arm. But 5 interceptions over the last 4 weeks. What can it be attributed to that?
Just goofy plays, man. They're really goofy plays. Once Amari Cooper, it's an in-breaker. He falls down. It's picked off. One goes through Keon Coleman's hands up into the air and into the hands of Jalen Ramsey. It should have been a touchdown catch. Just stuff like that, man, where, the Kenny Moore freelances. They're running a quick play action outbreaker, and Kenny Moore decides that he's not going to carry the seam route. He's just going to drive on the throw. It's just like weird stuff. Josh Allen hit as he's thrown and doesn't get enough on the pass, and underneath defender gets it. So it's really not been decision-making stuff or bad ball placement by Josh Allen. It's been kind of some goofy stuff. And his turnover-worthy throw rate is extremely low, and he's just been a lot more mature of a quarterback. And I'll say that during the streak of games where he didn't throw an interception, there should have been some, right? Like they didn't catch the ball when it was thrown to him. But I think collectively, I don't know that I'd look at the streak of interceptions not happening or the recent streak of them happening, because I think the truth is probably in the middle, and it should have been spread out a little bit more. 5 feels like the right number to this point, but I think the bigger story is that Josh Allen's just taking care of the football better than he has throughout his career to this point.
That's scary for the 49ers because, again, this guy, just the way he's able to put the team on his back at certain points in games. And again, I watched that game against the Kansas City Chiefs and kind of how he was able to put the Kansas City Chiefs away with the big, breaking off a big run for a touchdown. Just a guy that could be scary at any moment. And it's even scarier in this type of weather because I watched this guy play against the New England Patriots a few years ago. This had to be Mac Jones' rookie year. And although the Buffalo Bills did not win this game in this crazy weather, a game where I think Mac Jones threw the ball 3 times.
Yep.
You saw that he just wasn't worried about throwing in that type of weather at all. He threw the ball just as well and the same in that kind of weather with those super strong winds that, 0-degree weather, whatever it was. He threw the ball the same in that weather as he would if it was 75 and sunny out. So I think a lot of times you look at weather like this, a 49ers team that has not been playing well and think the playing field is even. I don't know if that's the case when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen back there.
Yeah, the physical traits are off the charts, right? I mean, that's what Josh is. He's got over 10-inch hands. I think arm talent-wise is good of a quarterback as you're going to see in the league. That's why the Bills draft a player like that, right? You got to think about that quarterback playing in these types of elements late in the season. If you want to host playoff games in Western New York, you better have a quarterback like Josh Allen that can do that. And so these are the games that should favor the Buffalo Bills. And maybe the stats aren't as pretty as everybody wants them to be, right? Because there is wind and there is snow, but you want to be the more weatherproof team if you're going to want to play home games in Western New York outside late in the season. And so that's kind of what they're built to do. And obviously we'll see what happens on Sunday night. And if the weather comes, and if not, if Purdy plays, if not, right, feels like a lot of elements that are just dangling here as we try to talk about this game in advance. All right, coming up on the other side of it, we're going to talk about the path to victory for both sides of the equation here. What does each team need to do to win the game? We got that for you next. Be sure to stick with us. Folks, there's nothing like being at the stadium, watching the games. Could you imagine being at Highmark Stadium, Sunday Night Football, Bills, Niners, Josh Allen, maybe a snow game? You want to get to these games. Maybe you want to see the Niners play against the Lions. You want to see the Niners play the Dolphins. If you want to go to games, you got to get the GameTime app. GameTime is the fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. The app is awesome. It's easy to navigate. They give you flash deals. They give you a picture from your seat so you know exactly what it's going to look like when you get into the stadium. If you buy a ticket, they send it straight to your phone so you don't have to dig through emails to find it. And I also love this. They specialize in last-minute ticket deals. So you don't have to have tickets 3 months in advance. You can make that decision right at the day of the event and get a great deal on a ticket. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It's game time. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. I'm Joe Marino, host of Locked On Bills, joined by Eric Crocker, host of Locked On 49ers, here to get you ready for Sunday Night Football in Week 13, Bills, Niners. And it's time to talk about the keys to victory. If the 49ers are going to go across the country, Sunday Night Football, win in Highmark Stadium, get the upset, right? 6.5-point road dogs. Yeah, be a big win, 6-6. You feel like you're kind of in the position to do the thing we talked about earlier and go on a run. What's got to happen? What are the keys for the Niners?
I think the 49ers have to figure out a way to make the Buffalo Bills uncomfortable, as if the weather can't make them uncomfortable as well, right? 49ers have to add to that. Can you put certain pressure on Josh Allen and force him to throw some of those boneheaded throws that we haven't seen him really throw this year, but we've seen him throw in the past? Get him to turn the ball over a couple of times. Then the 49ers have to turn around, take advantage of that, and be able to run the ball. They have not ran the ball well since Christian McCaffrey has come back. And in turn, that's putting the 49ers in some tough situations, some longer situations, and they just don't play well in, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10. Most teams obviously get a little worse in those situations. I think the 49ers are probably one of the worst because they don't have these great passing concepts. Teams understand how to attack the 49ers. Teams know that if you get the 49ers in that position, they don't change a lot of the stuff they do up front. So if you send some blitzes, they're going to throw to their hot. Teams are forcing them to throw to the hot guy right now. And teams are also rallying down and making tackles. So the 49ers, they got to get ahead of the sticks early in downs, and that's going to start with really being able to run the ball. Again, something they have not done very well since Christian McCaffrey has come back.
Crocker, it looks like we got a lot of similar thoughts here because my keys kind of align with what you're thinking for the 49ers side of things. Number one is I have written down, have the right plan to defend the run. And I know that you mentioned that the 49ers run game maybe not as dynamic as it's been, but the Bills run defense can be a little leaky. They play a ton of light boxes, man. They'll give you 6-man boxes all game long. They live in nickel, right? Taron Johnson, big-time slot corner, and he basically plays strong side linebacker for this team. And that's going to invite some runs. And the Bills want that. They want you to try to run the ball on them and tighten the screws in the red zone. Like, that's how they play defense. But you got to have the right plan because obviously, especially, if Brock Purdy's going to play and maybe that comes with some limitations with the shoulder. If he doesn't play and it's Allen again, they're going to run the ball, right? And so this Shanahan run scheme, the Bills play it all the time. They get the Dolphins a couple of times a year, right? They had LaFleur with the Jets for a little bit. They've seen this run scheme, and it gives them some troubles, man. The trap blocks, the whams, the misdirections, the horizontal stretch, it can give the Bills some problems. They can get creased a little bit. And so the Bills are going to have the right plan to defend the run. And maybe this is a week where you try to, roll that safety down and give your box a little bit more support if you're not as concerned with their ability to throw the football against you. Number two, on defense, you got to hunt the ball. The Niners are turning the ball over 12% of their drives. That's bottom 10 in the NFL. And the Bills are very good at taking away the football. They get a turnover or a takeaway 18% of the drives. They've had a takeaway in every single game this year. I think the streak's at like 14 or 15 games dating back to last year. They're a big play defense. And I know that the names are different in the secondary, but they still have that same mindset of going and taking away the football. And I think that'll be a big opportunity for them, not only to, obviously break on some balls where they have some really talented guys in terms of ball skills with Rasul Douglas, with Christian Benford, with Taron Johnson, with Terrell Bernard at linebacker, but they're good at forcing fumbles as well. And so I think they got to be hunting the football in this game and see if you can kind of use something that's been a strength for you and a weakness for them against the Niners in this game. And then on offense, I think this is about leaning into an efficient style of offense, which is how the Bills want to play. The Niners are a pretty good team metrically at defending vertical passes. They're not a very blitz aggressive team defensively. And so just take the profits, sit there and take the profits, rely on your yards after catch, run the football efficiently and stay ahead of the sticks. That way you don't put them in a position where they can, tee off, take advantage of some long and late downs and maybe, break on a pass and get a game-changing takeaway. So for me, it's have the right plan to defend the run, hunt the football, and be efficient on offense.
I think a lot of times we focus a lot on the offense, on the defense, and those phases of the game. But there's a third phase that's very important in special teams, and that's where the 49ers have not been very good.
31st in DVOA, Croc. What I was going to ask you about, what is going on with the Niners special teams, man?
Oh, man, I mean, they've been bad. So there's three phases of football, right? You got, offense, defense, special teams. And then within the special teams, you have a bunch of different phases, there as well. And I feel like at different times, the 49ers have just been bad at all of them. You have a really good punter with Mitch Wisnowski, who he's been out a couple of weeks now. We'll see if he's coming back. But even if he's not back, the punt unit, it's just been the coverage, not great. The 49ers have given up big returns in key moments. Sometimes it's bitten them in the butt. Sometimes it hasn't. The Rams beat the 49ers early in the year. A big part of that was 49ers punted it late in the game. The Rams returned it into their own territory, setting up a short field for them to be able to take the lead and beat the 49ers. And to see how the Seahawks, 49ers, they're kind of trying to run away with this game. They kick it off, and boom, there's a big return for a touchdown against the Niners. I mean, just at different times, the coverage unit has been bad. The 49ers have muffed a couple fumbles where you have a rookie back there, and maybe it's him, but it's not even his fault because his protector is getting pushed into his lap, where now he's getting distracted and the guy's hitting him and he's trying to catch the ball. I mean, any way that you can mess up special teams, the 49ers have done it, which leads you to the point or question, why is this special teams coordinator not fired yet with the 49ers being so bad right now? But in this type of weather where anything can kind of happen, you punt the ball, you could have a fumble, it could hit somebody, the ball's going to bounce a little funny in the snow or on the wet grounds. The 49ers have to be much better on special teams if they want to have a chance to beat the Buffalo Bills this Sunday.
Yeah, the weather can be a neutralizer. I mean, obviously the Bills might be a little bit more accustomed to being in those elements, but the ball's still slippery for the Bills, right? And so you could look at the weather as perhaps a bit of a neutralizer in this game if you start to see that type of stuff happen. And who knows, man? Weather in Western New York at this time of year changes. There's certainly snow in the forecast. Will it be snowing during the game? What does it look like to get there? What does it look like during? Hold your breath. We don't know what's going to happen, but it will be interesting nonetheless, and we certainly have you covered here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Bills, Locked On 49ers, all the pre- and post-game coverage you could ever want. So make sure you're keeping up with both podcasts. Eric Crocker, Brian Peacock, they do a great job over at Locked On 49ers. They'll give you the honest takes on that team before and after. And, of course, I got you covered here for Locked On Bills. All right, that's it for today, folks. Thanks for being here. As always, we kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch up with you again real soon.